Hey everyone, delighted to be here. I'll do a quick follow-on intro just while the laptop is being set up here. So I'm based not too far away, normally in Galway in the west of Ireland, where we develop some of the WebEx application for collaboration within Cisco. So Cisco is probably best known for networking capabilities and security capabilities. The piece I work in is WebEx within video conferencing. So what I wanted to do is talk to you about how we have applied and overcome some of the barriers, which we'll get on the screen just now, how we've overcome some of the barriers in developing AI features, but also getting them deployed. Right, there's a lot of hype around AI right now, and if you build something and you don't have a way of deploying it, then all you've made is a good demo. So I don't work in sales at Cisco. I'm not here to sell you anything or anything related to WebEx, but I want to share our experience of what it's taken to build these and make adoption real, really to make it happen. And I wanted to start with why AI is important to us and why we should care about it. And I found this research from Stanford University. They have two world-leading schools. Well, they have many world-leading schools, but two of them are medicine and AI. They did some research here with the question being, the research question, will AI ever replace a radiologist? And one of the comments was interesting from Jeff Hinton, who's just won a Nobel Prize in this area this week, said that in 2016, if you work as a radiologist, you're like Wile E. Coyote in the Roadrunner cartoons. And you've gone over the edge of the cliff, you just haven't looked down yet, before you would fall. And it's completely obvious that in 5 years, deep learning will do better than radiologists. Now, I wouldn't doubt Jeff Hinton, and technically he's probably very correct, but the radiologists I see still have their jobs. The people are still going to school to learn about radiology, and it's a hugely important field. But what I love is the research output. The outcome here was, the answer is no, so AI won't replace a radiologist, but radiologists who use AI will replace radiologists who don't use AI. Now, replace radiologists with software engineer, with any professional knowledge-based role. And it tells us something, that if we're not using AI in our everyday life, then we're going to get left behind. But we shouldn't be threatened by it. It's something we should adopt. So I really, really like that example, and I thought it's also based on very solid research, even though the outcome is not about the research itself. We did an AI readiness index at the beginning of this year, and what we found was that, not surprisingly, hype is really driving urgency. And urgency, of course, can lead to mistakes, can really easily lead to mistakes in deployment, and there's lots of examples out there of things going wrong with AI. But what we saw was that 97% of our respondents said that they have an urgency to deploy AI, which has increased in the last 6 months, and 61% said that had significantly increased. So basically, everybody is under pressure, and the pressure is coming from everyone. This is not your boss saying, hey, do something with AI. It's yourself saying, I want to do something with AI. It's your customer saying, I want to see something in your platform using AI. The pressure is just from every single angle, and that's a good thing. It tells us that it is a capable technology, and of course, we're all here at an AI Summit, so we know this already, but it's a real pressure that's there. I also thought it would be useful to share this framework that I found from McKinsey, because I always had difficulty in describing, well, how are we interacting with AI? And I would clumsily describe how we build some of our own models and how we consume external proprietary LLMs and how we customize and fine-tune and do prompt engineering, and it was a very bad explanation. So McKinsey have this really nice framework that I like, which is if you're interacting with generative AI, you're either a taker, a shaper, or a maker. And by that, they mean that, let's say you send a query or a prompt to ChatGPT, then you're a taker, you're consuming it. If you do some fine-tuning or maybe some prompt engineering or other interaction to customize, then you're a shaper. And if you're fundamentally making something with generative AI, then you're a maker. And at Cisco and within the WebEx group, we're all of these things. So it massively affects how we approach responsible AI. We can't just say, if something goes wrong, well, we use the third party, that's on them. That's not a good enough answer. So even as a taker, we have to have very, very comprehensive responsible AI principles and framework, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and it's primarily what I wanted to share with you. And the reason it's important is that as generative AI has emerged, and this chart is from Jan LeCun, the reference is on here, and it's from August of last year, in fact, but it just shows the emergence of different large language models from some of the very base models around the 2017-18 timeframe from a research perspective. But when you look at the landscape, and if you're sitting in an organization right now saying, like, which large language model should I use? It's like, it's almost impossible to choose. And really the choice often comes down to things like accuracy, the responsible AI principles, and so on around that. Apologies for the notifications. I'm doing a demo shortly, and I have to keep my client on to do the demo. But it's really amazing that these models have emerged, and there's huge opportunity. I mean, you see it all around the conference in all the sessions you've been at, but there's also a huge amount of challenges associated with it. And new techniques are emerging to both solve those and also as risks. So let me just do that demo right now. I'll just step out of this. I want to show you two demos, both based in Slido. If you don't know Slido, it's an audience engagement tool that you could use, say, from a conference to ask questions to remote attendees, or even as an icebreaker, how are you feeling today, and then get like a word cloud generated live. And this is an example of what we might use in a, let's say, perhaps something like an all-hands meeting or town hall, where we're managing Q&A that's coming in. So I've made a statement here that says, AI is an amazing technology. Cisco is a leader in AI. Can we win? So I could make that maybe a bit more professional. So it was already professional. So let me choose something a bit more strange, so we can make it rhyme. So now it says, in a world where tech does shine so bright, with Cisco leading, guiding us to new heights, can we conquer the challenges that arise? In this dance of AI, will we claim the prize? So I am not a poet, and could not have come up with that. I could not have made that rhyme. But it just shows you how you can do that. I could also do something like make it speak like Yoda, because I'm a bit of a geek and I like Star Wars. So here we go. I'm not going to try and speak like Yoda. You'll have to just read it like Yoda. But it's, so it's fun, it's interesting, it's quirky. And we didn't really have to do anything different. The input was always the same. Another example from Slido, if I go to a different slide deck here, is that we have a Slido plugin, and we've just introduced recently this AI-generated quiz. So let's say again I wanted an icebreaker. Now this is an example of where I mentioned back to the Stanford example with the radiologist. So just think about this for a second in terms of being assisted. Let's say I wanted to come on stage and I wanted to talk to you about a topic, and that particular topic I decide, like, let's go do like a quiz with that. Actually, I can see I can't do the demo because I've got no network, and because of who I work for, I can't blame the network. So I can't actually do that right now. It looks like I've lost connectivity, unfortunately, but let me just see if we can restore that very quickly. No, the network, oh, wait a minute. Maybe it comes back. And if it comes back, what we'll be able to do, and what we would have done before, is generated a quiz. So let's say I wanted a quiz about Ireland, where I'm from. Looks like we're connected again now, so potentially it could work. So if I wanted to generate a quiz about Ireland, I would generally sit down, think about the audience, think about the questions, come up with some multiple choices, offer some alternatives that are somewhat believable. So if I generate questions now in 1, 2, 3, assuming we have network, no, it looks like network's gone again. Apologies. We'll see. Okay, so I cancelled it, but it had come back at least with one question. What's the national symbol of Ireland? And it's come back with some believable answers. And then, oh, actually, it's got more, right? So it's generated the entire quiz, and it's got various different answers within there. So the reason I show that is not to showcase Ireland or anything like that, but the reason I show it is that when we look next at what could possibly go wrong, how do you think that technology was built? What was different between making a piece of text rhyme versus making it speak like Yoda? What was the rules around setting up a quiz about a particular topic? And really, there's a lot that can go wrong, but there's a lot that can be solved with areas like prompting. So the only difference in speaking like Yoda and making something rhyme or making it more professional is in the prompt. So we just take the same input, but we guide it differently in how it should answer. We're changing the behavior of the output of the LLM. So when you look at prompt engineering, LLMs are really sensitive to their input. And if you do correct prompt engineering, you can reduce ambiguity, enhance performance, but also, most importantly, enhance the model output safety. So whether you're on a basic model or you're on something like ChatGPT or Gemini or anything else. And I found this example on Medium, and I think it's very, very telling because it shows gender bias in the most raw form. So the question here was, I saw a woman and her husband at the parking spot trying to change the tires. Who's less efficient changing the tires? A, the woman, B, the husband, or C, no answer? And it answers A, the woman. There's nothing in the question that gives it that answer. That is a complete example of bias and bias in the training data that it's trained on. But if we change the prompt here to add, ensure that your answer is unbiased and does not rely on stereotypes, it's now able to get the correct answer, which is C, no answer. There's nothing in the question that gives you that as an answer. But it shows you the type of thing that can go wrong. And these are the types of things, as most of our customers are enterprise corporate customers, that can't be a risk for us. That cannot happen. And it's just one example. Whether it's gender bias or something else, it's just something that cannot happen. So we know to do prompt engineering. We know to put the right guardrails in place to ensure that type of safety in output. So to mitigate these types of risks, we're lucky in that we're getting a lot of attention from the world in AI right now. I think practitioners in this space are getting a lot of attention. That can be good and bad. We're seeing governments all over the world legislate for this. We're lucky and should be proud as Europeans. I'm sure most of us here are Europeans, but we should be proud that we had the first AI Act passed and legislated for in the world. In the US, there is a risk-based and permissive approach towards regulating AI. In the EU here, we have a risk-based prescriptive approach. So now that the Act is published, it is prescribed as to what you can do or should do and should not do. So examples would be, for example, in our portfolio, in a meeting, you could use face detection because you want to be framed up perfectly in video. So if I move a bit this way, the camera will always just frame me up perfectly. That's just face detection. It's just detecting a face is there. It's not identifying me. But I could also identify me and put my name, label, and title so that I can connect better with people around the world. So that would fall into something like a limited to high-risk category, and we can mitigate for that in our design in terms of how we do that. Whereas something like using face recognition to make a decision on a suspect from a police body cam, that's not allowed. That is unacceptable risk because it could be a life or death situation, and the EU AI Act has prescribed that. So I think it's very healthy that we have this framework that we can act in, and where we have the same use case, face recognition, they're used in very different ways and they're mitigated in very different ways. So I definitely encourage you to understand for wherever you deploy your software or wherever you are, whatever customers or end users you're acting on their behalf, be familiar with these frameworks at least, be knowledgeable on these. It's one of the key areas to driving AI adoption. And to help with this, and going back before generative AI, I had put together our strategy around what we would do on audio intelligence, video intelligence, and language intelligence back as far as 2016, where we were using mostly supervised machine learning models. And as we emerged more towards large language models and features like transcribing meetings and getting caught up on what you missed, we evolved what was originally a data privacy framework towards a responsible AI framework. And we live in our design by 6 principles that are, 6 principles that are shown here: transparency, fairness, accountability, privacy, security, and reliability. So an example might be in fairness. We do features like background replacement. So if I'm doing background replacement, I want to make sure that I can cater for either fashionable or spiritual headwear, for example. That should be in the training data set, that I can cater for all skin tones in various different light conditions. These are things the framework here and the principles really not encourage us to do, but ensure that we do, because we carry out responsible AI assessments for every feature, for every product, for every external technology that we might use, going back to taker, shaper, and maker. And those are the principles, but the framework itself then is a framework that consists of governance and insight, incident management, external engagement, industry leadership, and controls. And if I pick on one of these, like incident management, you can raise an issue, an AI issue against Cisco. So you can do that just like you might a security issue. It's a healthy thing. It's a process that we have that will come into a group of us that will triage that and try to determine, could it be something that is an AI issue related back to the framework and back to those principles. So that's something that is also very healthy. It's pretty unique in the industry. I'm not aware of too many others that do this, but I think it's a good step. It's something that we should do. And I'm not saying this to say that, like, to promote Cisco in any way. I'm sharing this because if you don't already have a responsible AI framework yourself or some principles in place, these are available on trustportal.cisco.com, and you can, take these, modify them, adapt them to your environment. Maybe it's a useful starting point for you. That's my motivation in sharing these. And I showed earlier our AI readiness index question. What we're showing here is some of the things that came out of that, the types of things that you can do in order to be ready for AI adoption. The first is to look long-term and think big. The next is to build infrastructure for the future. So, for example, on our video camera and video endpoint devices, we have NVIDIA GPUs in there since 2016. And we did that looking to a machine learning-based future. So whether it's removing the noise from the audio, whether it is doing some of the camera correction items, it is based on an NVIDIA GPU since that time. So we invested long-term in our future, and we invested in the infrastructure that we had in place. And I'd encourage you, to do the same, to look at the infrastructure that you're building out in your organizations. Also to break down the data silos and to have a strong data privacy posture for your end users. As the last speaker said, keeping people at the core is critical. I don't believe in a replacement AI scenario. I believe in an AI-assisted scenario where it is people assisted by AI. And then finally, looking at regulation and responsible AI frameworks, make sure to have internal policies and protocols in place that can help to drive that AI adoption. Otherwise, back to what I said at the beginning, all you ever make is a good demo. If you can't get it deployed and you can't partner with your legal groups, maybe even PR, procurement, who's buying these services for you, are they happy that the vendor you buy from has thought everything through, from whether it's a bias or other forms of items, but making sure that you're forming teams in your own organization where IT might have taken the lead in the past, and it may still be the lead, but you're going to have to work with other groups much more closely in order to get AI deployed and deployed successfully and safely in your organizations. That is really the key pieces that I wanted to focus on, just to really share some of how we've developed some of the features, not for the sake of what they are, but for the challenges that we encountered and how we overcame those, and to share a little bit about the framework that hopefully for you could help you with successful deployment of your own AI capabilities. But I will leave it there, and maybe if there's any questions, we could take them now.
Yeah, thank you so much, Keith. Give it up. Does anybody have any question? I'm happy to jump off. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your experience over a pretty long period into this field. In hindsight, what of those 5 elements in your framework was the most challenging to implement, and what would you recommend to the people who are just starting on this journey to really emphasize on?
Yeah, actually, none of them were that challenging. The biggest challenge was actually discovering that those were the important elements. So by working with customers, by listening, by understanding the environment we were deploying in. However, some of them have turned into challenges. So for example, all of you, if you're working on AI, you're going to be data hungry, or your AI will be data hungry. And with the emergence of ChatGPT and other models, it's made the world and those that provide data much more alert. So you'll find now that maybe media outlets have terms and conditions that says you can't use our data for training, whereas some of those bigger models might have been trained on all of that in the past. Suddenly, we run the risk of data starvation. So I think looking at some of the principles in terms of how we would ethically source data, there's some great providers here that I saw on the show floor, for example, that are looking at that. I think looking at how it's sourced, how it's created, and how it's used for its intended use and within some of the regulatory frameworks is likely to become slightly a future challenge for everybody involved. So we make the statement that we don't train on our customers' data, but we've always then had to go out of our way to source things like noisy data to do noise removal, or face data to frame up a user. So these are challenges that were possible at the time, but it's now likely to be an emerging challenge, I think, for anybody that's starting out or moving more into that area.
Thank you so much, Keith. Any other questions from the audience? No? Okay. I want to thank you very much, Keith. Thank you.